Hello, good afternoon, and welcome. Daniel Jude Jennis coming to you from London in the United Kingdom. As always, where else would I be? Maybe one day I will be recording a video entry from a foreign location. Who knows? Far East, Far West, Midwest, Mid Atlantic, Mid Pacific, the Polynesian Islands, maybe? Who knows? Who knows what the future brings? Um, Right, first off, little bit of a setup uh, to how I normally do things. My trusty iPhone 6 is low on juice. I mean, it's about 56%, but I mean, that should be enough to actually record a video diary entry. But what I've done is, the phone's on charge, and I've actually set up my phone on a tripod, and I'm mic'd up, as you can see here. So I'm hoping that the sound quality will be a lot better than it normally is, because I just kind of put my trusty iPhone 6 on top of the microwave. There's like a ornament on top of the microwave. Don't ask me why it's there. I didn't put it there, but I just lodge my iPhone 6 against it, and I normally do my entries that way. Right now, I'm in the middle of the kitchen talking to you, on my phone that's on a tripod, and I'm mic'd up. So I'm hoping the sound quality will be a lot better. Okay, I'm still in mourning. I'm still the man in black. Um, but I'm still dealing with the emotions over the loss of my mother, and it's all mixed emotions there. And anybody who's seen my previous video entries since Friday will know what I'm going through right now. So it's kind of still there. The anger is there still, and it's kind of internalized a lot more. So I'm not kind of blowing it out like, a phoenix rise from the flames or anything like that. It's there. It's internalized. I'm a lot more calmer about it. I've just had a phone call via WhatsApp from my sister who lives stateside, my older sister. So we've been having the conversation about what's happening 120 miles north of where I am in Birmingham, what little she's gleaned, because nobody's really talking to her as such. I mean, she's talking to well, I won't say who she's talking to, but let's just say that her skills of reaching out and communication are far superior to mine. That's all I will say on that course. There's a lot of politics. I'm not talking about politics in terms of politician governments, but family politics. There's a lot of that going on at the moment, and I'm kind of outside of it. I can't really steam in and say anything because I was ostracized for so long. That's where I'm at the moment. I mean, there's a lot that I can say in regards to other people that are connected to this. Not going to mention any names, but well, I have actually mentioned something about my mum's passing not being mentioned elsewhere. I'm not going to go back into that at all. But I'm kind of expressing myself better. I think because I'm not in one position where I normally record. The phone's on a tripod. I'm standing in front of it, so I'm much more expressive. I feel much more expressive. I feel I have that freedom to move around as I am, as you can see. So I'm not stood in one. Well, I'm still in a position, but I can move around. So I feel a lot more freer, and because of that, I feel a lot more expressive in how I feel. So, talking about expressive, and putting to one side, though it's not forgotten, my mother's passing, the fact I'm in mourning, I'm wearing black, I'm the man in black. Putting that to one side, because you already know that, because I'm assuming that anybody who's watched this has watched the previous two entries, so you know exactly where I'm at. Nothing's changed. It's just that everything is internalized, and I'm much more calmer. And as I say, the eyes are the windows to your soul. So if I remove my glasses and stick them somewhere here, you can look into my eyes. You can actually see what's going on. So, talking about being expressive, what I wanted to discuss today, just to take my mind away from what's going on elsewhere, is I got a voicemail message. Previous diary entry went up, and somebody commented on the fact that they thought I was a black man with a very strong London accent. That's the image they had of me, because they've never heard me speak until I started putting these things on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. The whole thing's linked to Facebook anyway. So that's when they're first hearing me speak. And this person mentioned that I sounded very much like Sir Lenny Henry doing a comedy sketch. Now, for those who don't know who Sir Lenny Henry is, Sir Lenny Henry, or Lenny Henry as I like to call him, is a black British comedian, actor, producer. He started up as a stand-up comedian, eventually appeared on many shows, and eventually got his own TV shows via the BBC, and the rest is history, as I say. But essentially, Lenny Henry is from an area called Dudley, which is part of the West Midlands, so it's not far from Birmingham. So it's in the Midlands, a region of England, or the United Kingdom, called the Midlands. So there are regional accents. It varies, but it comes to the same thing. So when I'm speaking, people kind of associate me with Sir Lenny. Now, oddly enough, I ran into a television chat show host called Jonathan Ross. He's very big in the United Kingdom, and he's very much into television, and I ran into him when I was on my way to a comic book store called The Forbidden Planet in Covent Garden, and he was a little bit lost because the Forbidden Planet had moved, and he's a big comic book fan, so he was going down there. I ran into him, and he wanted to find out where it was. It's on Shaftesbury Avenue, where it moved to from New Oxford Street. So we're there and we're talking. He remarked that I sounded very much like Lenny Henry, but it was nice to have met a television hero. I mean, I actually met Lenny. Actually worked on one of his TV shows. So it's kind of good that you met two people in the television industry and the entertainment industry that you kind of admire and respect. But notwithstanding that, it's kind of a double-edged sword that people associate you because of the way you speak with somebody who is more famous than you, i.e. Sir Lenny Henry. The downside of it is that people are not necessarily listening to what you're saying. They're more interested in how you sound. Okay? Now, I know that given my accent, well, let me backtrack a bit. This is me. Okay? I'm not acting. This is not scripted. Okay? Everything I'm saying is on the hoof. It's coming off the top of my head. I have a vague idea what I want to discuss, but I don't really get into the flow until I start to do it when I'm in front of the camera. So this is me. Now, I am not an expert on accents, but I've got loads of resources on accents. I could go out and learn accents for the rest of my life and be very, very proficient at it. But it's not something I want to do. I recall the late Scottish actor Gordon Jackson, who is more globally famous for playing the butler Hudson in the British TV drama series Upstairs and Downstairs. He did go on to star in another series called The Professionals that ran from the late 1970s to the early 1980s. But I remember an interview he gave. I was reading it in one of the newspapers where he mentioned he worked with the late great Orson Welles, and Orson Welles on accent says, that while accents are important, sincerity is more important. Or he said, I can't remember the exact quote, but it was something along the lines of, "Well, don't worry about accents. Sincerity is far more important." And if you can combine the two, then that's brilliant. But I tend to find that people focus more on accents rather than the sincerity. Now, in terms of people who do accents, I mean, Idris Elba, the actor, he's brilliant. He can do a brilliant American accent, and you believe he is an American until you actually hear him speak. And he's very London centric because that's where he's born and raised. I was born and raised in Birmingham, so I have a Birmingham Midlands accent, or as it's known locally, a Brummie accent. So, I'm a Brummie. You can take the man out of Birmingham, but you can't take Birmingham out of the man, as that cliche goes. So, yes, where was I? Yeah, accents. This is me, essentially. And, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't like my accent. I could try and get rid of it, but then that's kind of like social climbing, and I'm not into social climbing. This is my accent. It's going to be with me until it eventually fades away. Now, having lived in London for 24 years now, one would think it would have gone by now, but it's still here. I mean, Sean Connery still has his Scottish accent. Michael Caine still has his Cockney accent, even though Cockney is virtually a dead dialect now. It's been replaced by MLE, which stands for multilingual English, and that's kind of like the accent that you get from people now in London. Well, at least younger people, anyway. So, as I keep on saying, this is me. I know that when I've gone for auditions and castings, the moment I open my mouth, you can see that you haven't got the role because of the way I speak. The British and specifically English are very class conscious, particularly of how people speak and where they come from. And depending on where you come from, sometimes indicates how successful you will be in life. Now, having the accent I have, you come across to some people, especially in London, London-centric people, you come across as being inarticulate, thick, stupid. That tends to be what's associated with the Brummie accent, the Birmingham accent. So let me throw something in the mix right here. Let me name you a famous Brummie, somebody who's not associated with Birmingham, even though he was born and raised not far from Birmingham, in Stratford-upon-Avon. You guessed it, William Shakespeare. One of the most famous Brummies, because Stratford-upon-Avon is in the greater Birmingham area. It's in Warwickshire, but Birmingham up until 1974 was in the county of Warwickshire. I was born in Birmingham in the county of Warwickshire, so therefore I'm a Warwickshire lad. And Shakespeare was a Warwickshire lad. So that's something for me to be proud of, and his plays are written that way. I mean, my Shakespeare guru, Colin David Rees, excellent actor, the expert on Shakespeare, in my opinion. I attended a couple of his workshops, and he's absolutely brilliant. I wonder what Colin David would think. Well, he'd probably watch this and actually make a comment. But there goes Colin David. I look forward to hearing what you have to say. But yeah, and he would have written his plays a certain way as well. You see, so I mean, look what came out of the greater Birmingham area in Warwickshire. You know, one of the most famous playwrights in the world, probably the famous playwright in the world. I mean, you know, he was writing in the 16th, 17th century, and look where we are in the 21st century. People are still reading Shakespeare. It's still being performed on stage and being made into films. So that's a great thing. That's part of my heritage. That's how I see it. So again, I have to repeat this. This is me. This is the way I sound, and you know, you can accept it or you can choose not to. But I'm not going to be judged on the way I sound. This is the way I sound. This is me being sincere. I'm in front of a camera. I'm being myself. I'm talking to you now. It doesn't really matter if I sound like Sir Lenny Henry. You know, I think one of the other problems with how people perceive the Midlands Birmingham accent is that generally in television and film, you know, despite the fact that there are actors that come out of Birmingham and the Midlands, what tends to happen with the casting process, they tend to cast actors who aren't from Birmingham. And so they put on this very cod Birmingham accent. In fact, there's one actor who is not from Birmingham. Excuse me, let me just have a sip of water here. Hold on one moment. There's one actor who, for me, got the Birmingham accent down stat, even though it's not his native accent, and that is a actor called Matthew McFadden. Matthew made his name in a series called Spooks, which was made by BBC Television. In the States, the United States, I believe it's called MI5 because it's set around the work and the agents of MI5, the security service as it's more commonly known now. And in a series that his wife starred, I mean her name escapes me now, do forgive me, but anyway, his wife was starring in a series called Ashes to Ashes, which was the sequel to another series called Life on Mars. Nothing to do with David Bowie, funny enough, but Life on Mars is about a police detective who suffers a head injury in a car crash or something like that. He finds himself transported back to 1973. In the sequel, Ash to Ashes, his psychologist finds herself, I'm not sure if it's through an accident of some sort as well, finds herself transported back to the 1980s. But anyway, in Ash to Ashes, Matthew McFadden, he's playing a brummie. It's the 1980s, and he's playing a brummie. And I didn't realise it was Matthew McFadden, you know, in the first place, till I kind of looked in his eyes, watching TV, and I thought, I know that guy. Oh, yes, Matthew McFadden. But he had the Birmingham accent stat. I can't remember what the character's involved in, but I remember the speech he was giving where he's talking about, you know, he's got his family and, you know, he's working this job for shit wages as he's going on. And I remember not having my family as yet, but being in that situation in the 1980s where I was in a job that was paying shit wages, and I empathised with his character because Matthew, being a really great actor he is, got it down stat. You couldn't fault him. You know, he'd actually done his homework and he had the Birmingham accent and the character down stat. So that's one great example, but it's not many. I mean, there's another series that was done by ITV, you know, the commercial channel here in the United Kingdom, called A Brian. It's a whopper, and it's set in Birmingham about a group of guys who are mates, you know, who went fishing, angling, and it was mainly Roy Holder, Edward Clayton, a few others, and they were all Birmingham actors anyway, so it kind of worked in that way. But generally, when it comes to casting characters from the Midlands, Birmingham, Wolverhampton, Coventry, wherever, it's very seldom that they cast actors who originate from that region. You know, it's somebody who can do the accent. Well, fair enough, do the accent, but it's so false, which is why, you know, I would love to work in Hollywood movies and work in films and television in America, but I think my accent would be so false because if you're a white actor, if you're a Caucasian actor, and you kind of do an American accent, even if it's a general one or a Bostonian accent, you're likely to get away with it. But with the African American accent, it's slightly deeper. It's slightly deeper. It's a little bit more raw. I suppose if I modelled my accent, maybe approach it from the way Sidney Poitier, great black actor, American black actor. I'm not sure if he's African American. I think he may be born in America but raised in the Caribbean, the Bahamas, I think. But anyway, he grew up in the Bahamas anyway. But maybe it's kind of like, I'm thinking about this now, and I thought about it, maybe if I kind of modelled my approach on how he did it. Clearly, when I look at other African American actors, I like Samuel L. Jackson, Morgan Freeman, Denzel Washington. I think they're from the southern United States, so they have southern accents from that state. The other actor I'm trying to think of now, I've mentioned Samuel L. Jackson, Morgan Freeman, Denzel Washington. I'm trying to think of somebody else who may not originate there, who's a big name. I can't think of his name. It's gone. It may come back to me. It may not. But that maybe is the approach I would make. But if then you look at, all the African Lou Gossett Jr. That's the other African American actor I'm thinking of. I'm not sure where he hails from. But again, maybe he's in the same category as Sidney Poitier. I know he's definitely American born anyway, but I need to investigate that a little bit more. So that's something I've learned just talking to you now, because none of these things came to mind until I was going on, rambling on. That's how ideas come to one. But that's the main thrust of what I wanted to talk to you today, about accents. How people, just because of the way you sound, that's how you're judged. And I think that is wrong. As I say to people when I meet them, I say, look, I know you've got an accent, but I'm actually listening to what you're saying, because that's generally what I'm doing. I'm listening, not to how they sound, but what they're actually saying. Unfortunately, some people, given their upbringing or where they come from, they're not interested in that. But before I go, I'll leave you with one example of that. And this didn't come from a Caucasian, a white person. I remember back in the day, I went to work on a BBC production called Messiah the Promise. It was third in a crime series the BBC had done. I remember meeting up with this fellow black actor who was going on there. It was background work anyway. So going there and, we're talking, and he kind of made some disparaging remarks about my accent, that I needed to lose it, and I'm just thinking, I couldn't be bothered to have a go of him, because I was going to work where he was. Never saw the cunt again, right bastard, right arrogant bastard. So, this thing goes above colour lines, because, there are some black people, and, they kind of believe, well, if you don't speak a certain way, or you don't act a certain way, or you don't dress a certain way, you're not black enough, That's the kind of negative racism. Black people are just as racist, you know, as any other person of color or creed, and that kind of racism that I experienced was kind of inverted, you know, you know, really, really unacceptable to me, really unacceptable. But you do have these, people who think they're so much better and so much superior, and then they talk about racism. Then they don't see their own discrimination, with black people, with other black people, let alone anybody else. You know, thick, stupid, ignorant. I've been using those phrases a lot, but it's not just Caucasian people that you can throw that line at. You can throw it at Asian people. You can throw it at black people, because at the end of the day, we're all human. So that's it. But yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you today. And looking at my time now, just over 26 minutes. The way things are going, right, I'll be making a feature movie, just standing here talking with you if you don't fall asleep. I hope what I have discussed today you found interesting, and you've actually stayed with me. And I really appreciate that. It's always good talking to an audience of one, because I don't know who watches this. I know at least a couple of people do, and one person in particular watches, but that's not the person I was talking about in terms of my accent. This is somebody else. I just shared a message with him today, and he told me he lost his mother at Christmas, which was quite awful. Well, death is always awful, but at Christmas time it's even worse. But then I lost my mother on Good Friday, and a Spanish friend of mine, after going back to Spain, spending Christmas with his family and coming back, he had to go back to Spain because his father committed suicide. And doesn't get more raw than that. Really raw, but hey, that's what happens. These things happen, and we have no control over them. But anyway, God, over 27 minutes, come to 28 minutes. I'm not going to kind of keep it to 30 minutes. I'm just going to round things up by saying, as always, be good to yourself, be good to others, look out for others, and above all, in this current crisis, be safe, be absolutely safe. So I bid you adieu, au revoir, and I will talk to you again soon, hopefully tomorrow. So, until we meet again, take care, have a great day, and thanks for watching. Goodbye now.